Hello everyone, and welcome to our first ever episode of Dissecting the Truth Case Files Uncovered. I'm Shanika, and on this channel we're going to be talking about all things true crime, murder and mystery. And I'm really excited because this is our first ever episode and it's something that I've wanted to do for so long. So I'm going to stop rambling because I just really want to get into the case, but I really hope that you enjoyed this video and make sure to leave case suggestions down below, because even though I am in love with true crime, I want to know what you guys want to watch, because there are so many cases out there that I probably haven't even seen. So for today's case, we're going to be talking about the case of Grace Millane. Grace Millane was a 21, about to turn 22-year-old who was murdered by a Tinder date in New Zealand. Most of the evidence for this case is a 55-minute compilation that you can find on YouTube of CCTV surveillance, and it tracks that, like, the couple's every move. And throughout this whole thing, when I was watching it, I just wanted to scream down the screen and just say, like, Grace, don't go. Let's jump into this story. I just want to add a disclaimer that I don't mean any harm towards anyone involved. I am just sharing a story that I found on the internet and I'm compiling it all into one video. So I really hope that you guys enjoy it, and let's get on with the video. So today's case is the case of Grace Millane. Grace Emma Rose Millane was born on the 2nd of December 1996. She was the daughter of Father David and Mother Gillian. She had two half-brothers who were from a previous marriage that her dad had. It is said that Grace's older brothers absolutely adored their little sister, and they said that Grace was a force to be reckoned with. Her brothers' names were Michael and Declan. Growing up, Grace played hockey and she even became a mentor for the younger students. In September of 2018, Grace graduated with a degree of advertising and marketing at the University of Lincoln. Soon after graduating, she decided that she wanted to take a year-long trip to travel the world. She tweeted, quote, "less than a month and counting." Now, from this, we can see that Grace was so excited and that she just wanted to travel. But before she left, she wanted to donate her hair to the Little Princess Trust. Now, the Little Princess Trust is an organisation that makes real hair wigs for the patients of cancer treatment. Grace started her travelling in Peru before heading to South America and finally arriving in New Zealand on November 2018. She spent 10 days travelling the North Island of New Zealand and then explored the Bay of Islands. The Bay of Islands make up about 144 islands, so she spent a lot of time exploring the North End. After she spent her 10 days of travelling, she made it down to Auckland, New Zealand. When this case first went to trial, Grace's murderer's identity was kept a secret due to a suppression order that was put in place. This meant that no one could reveal the identity of this man until the trial had finished. If they did, they would face up to 6 months jail time or a $25,000 fine. According to New Zealand, the reason they put this suppression order in place was to help preserve the fairness of the case. They did this because they didn't want the jury to be affected by the media. The suppression ends once the accused is convicted, and despite all efforts, the killer's name was released to the media by overseas media outlets. And the reason they could do this was the suppression is only legal inside of New Zealand. So anyone outside of it, if they say their name and they find out who this man is, legally they can say it. But for the sake of the case and to keep you all waiting, I will not be revealing the murderer's name until the very end. Like I said, the case's evidence is mainly CCTV footage, and you can find it here on YouTube. It is a compilation of the movements of Grace and her killer, and like I said, it is so daunting to watch, sitting there knowing what's going to happen, and she doesn't. So most of what I'm talking about and most of the evidence that I have compiled is from the YouTube. I will be listing it down below and I recommend watching it. Let's get into the case. Grace matched with a guy on Tinder in December of 2018. The same day, they organised to go on a date. The night of December 1st, 2018, Grace checked into the City Life Hotel at 5:37 p.m. Grace is then seen leaving the hotel. She's wearing a long black t-shirt, white shoes, a white watch, and a handbag. And just from the CCTV footage, you can see exactly what she's wearing. Like, this footage is unbelievably clear. Like, it is so clear that you can see every single detail. She's then seen walking on foot to the Sky City Hotel. This is roughly a 7-minute walk from the City Life Hotel. Sky City Hotel holds bars, restaurants, shops, and even a casino. Grace waits in the dining area until 5:54 when we can see a man approach her. He's wearing a blue button-up, a black top, blue jeans, and sneakers. The two exchange a hug. We can tell that it is a little bit awkward just by how they're acting. You can definitely tell that it is a first date. And this is how the police discovered that Grace went on a date, because it was seemingly obvious after watching the CCTV footage that they were on a date. The first bar they go to is called Andy's Burger Bar. The footage shows them walking up to the bar, grabbing some menus, talking casually amongst themselves. And even at one point, they are seen talking to the bartender. They buy a few drinks, and then from here, they head to the next bar. At this point, the two seem to be bar hopping. At 7:16 p.m, the two head to the Mexican cafe, which in the previous messages that the two had exchanged earlier that day discussing the date, Grace's killer had actually mentioned going to the Mexican cafe. They spend roughly an hour here. As the man is paying for the drinks, you can 100% tell that they're starting to become more comfortable with each other. You can see Grace leaning over his shoulder and rubbing his arm, and they just seem like they're enjoying themselves and they're comfortable. They look like they've known each other for a while. Like, the tension is completely gone. At 8:13 p.m, they end up at the Blue Stone Room, this time for dinner. It is the first black and white footage that we see in this entire case. So it is a little bit harder to see, but again, like, the footage is absolutely clear as day. At 8:56 p.m, you can see the man go to the toilet, but before he does, he gives Grace a kiss. Now, before this, they are actually seen making out. So once again, they're starting to become more and more comfortable with each other, and we can see this progressively heading upwards throughout the whole CCTV footage. Me personally, and most of the people that had watched this is a massive signal that the date was going well. Once the man leaves, Grace reaches for her phone, and this is the first time that she has touched her phone the entire night that we can see. Now, it is recorded that Grace did send a message to her friend back home. In this message, she said, quote, "I click with him so well. He is an oil manager and lives in a hotel," end quote. The man then returns and Grace goes to the toilet. When Grace leaves, he starts acting so strange. And personally, his behavior is a massive red signal. Once Grace leaves and she's out of sight, the man grabs her bag and starts shuffling through it. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not something you do on a first date. There is no explanation of why he's going through the bag. As soon as Grace comes back, the bag is placed back where it was, and that was it. That was the last time that we saw them at this bar. And see them return back to Grace's hotel room. They enter the elevator and head to room 308, which is on the 3rd floor. This is the last ever CCTV footage that Grace Millane is seen alive. On December 1st, 2018, Grace Millane is seen exiting the elevator arm in arm with her murderer. The night of December 1st, 2018, Grace was strangled to death, and it is unknown whether she made it past her 22nd birthday. That's right, it was her 22nd birthday, the day after she was murdered. We don't know if she lived to see it or if she didn't. The timeline is unclear. But what is clear is that at 1:30 a.m. December 2nd, the man's phone records shows that he Googled a number of things, those being Waitakere Park. I think that's how you say it. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And this is unfortunately the exact location of where he was going to dispose her body. He then also looked up how to dispose of a body, and he even looked up pornography. It just screams no remorse at all. He was planning to try and get away with this murder. He also is capturing intimate photos of Grace's body. Again, no remorse. You can tell just from this that he doesn't care. He never cared. He doesn't care. On December 2nd, 2018, it is Grace's 22nd birthday, and of course, all her friends and family back home are flooding her phone with messages and calls, trying to reach her, to wish her happy birthday, but none of it got through. No one could reach Grace, and it was unsettling. But Grace's parents were hoping for the best, and they just assumed that Grace maybe went on a hiking trip and there was no reception, and she simply just forgot to tell them. But they did think it was a little bit strange because throughout this entire trip, Grace was messaging them every single day. Meanwhile, over in Auckland, the man is now planning to get rid of Grace's body. This is the exact time frame of him covering up Grace Millane's murder. So, the man leaves the hotel at 8 a.m, going down the elevator and heads towards the exit. He's no longer wearing that blue button-up top. Now, I want to take note of that because that blue button-up top resurfaces later on in this case, and I don't know if it has any symbolized meaning to it. I just wanted to point that one out. So he's no longer wearing that blue top. He makes his way to the elevator, and when he enters the elevator, on the CCTV footage, he directly makes eye contact with the camera and then instantly turns away. And he faces his back the entire way back down. He does not look at that camera again. He then makes his way to the Atrium Mall, where he is seen walking to a store called The Warehouse at 8:07 a.m. He's seen looking around, picking up different suitcases, and then eventually he picks up a black suitcase, walks to the register, and proceeds to check out. He is then seen rolling the suitcase back to the City Life Hotel, where he walks straight through the elevator and goes back up to Grace's room. What is highly strange is he is using a room key, which he doesn't have because he isn't a guest, but Grace is. From this alone, we can assume that he is using Grace's room key to come in and out of the City Life Hotel as he pleases. Now, somewhere that morning, I'm not sure of the timeline, but he did end up messaging a girl to meet up. At 8:32 a.m, he is then seen again going back down the elevator and out the doors. This time, he doesn't have that suitcase. He makes his way to the Countdown Metro, which I didn't realise was actually a Woolworths, but they don't call it that. So it's a New Zealand Woolworths, but it's called the Countdown Metro, which I thought was just really cool because obviously in Australia we have Woolworths and we call it Woolworths, but in New Zealand they call it a Countdown Metro. He purchases a number of cleaning supplies and once again returns back to the City Life Hotel. He's starting to look a little bit suspicious, and I don't understand throughout this whole case how he doesn't think, oh, there's CCTV footage. Like, it's in a extremely popular area. Like, there's cameras everywhere. But anyway, at 10:25 a.m, a little over an hour later, the man leaves again, and this time he's in the elevator with other people. I'm walking in and out, in and out, in and out, even with Grace. They either were the only two in the elevator or he was only in the elevator by himself. So this is the first time he is in the elevator with other people. And even though they had no idea, imagine like watching back like the CCTV footage, because it is out there to the public, and being like, oh my gosh, that's me. I was in the elevator with a murderer. Like, my mind would freak out. Once he leaves the elevator, he jumps in a taxi, which had a camera in it directly pointing at his face. So this here, we get a clear view of what the man looks like. And he makes his way to a car rental place where he rents a red hatchback Toyota Corolla. He proceeds to drive the car back to the hotel. Once he gets the rented car, he proceeds to drive back to the hotel. Now, we don't see him again for a few hours. In fact, he doesn't come back on camera until 4:20 p.m. And this is when he is seen leaving the hotel, this time wearing the blue button-down top. He headed to the Rivalry bar and purchases a drink. Now, remember that the girl that he was messaging earlier? He met up with this girl. They end up meeting up at the bar, and then they are seen leaving the bar together. The girl later comes out and says that during the night, they were talking about a murder trial that she attended because she's a journalist. The man says, quote, "It's crazy how guys can make one wrong move and go to jail for the rest of their life," end quote. After the date ended, the man is seen driving the red rented car to another store where he purchases a rug doctor, which is a carpet cleaner. He had told the shop owner that he needed it to clean a red wine stain. Now, we all know that that is not what he is using it for. At 8:56 p.m, he is seen wheeling it back to the City Life Hotel, and not long after, he returns back to the store where he returns it. At 9:30 p.m, the man rolls a baggage trolley into the elevator. He had 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. After police had gathered the footage that I just spoke about, they now discover how Grace left the hotel unseen. Grace was unfortunately in one of those suitcases. The man puts both suitcases and the duffel bag into the rental car and walks back to Grace's room where he stays the night. He stays in the same room that he just killed someone in. On December 3rd, the man is seen leaving the hotel at 6:14 a.m. and starts driving to a hardware store where he purchases a red shovel. At 9:30 a.m, which is about 2.5 hours since we last seen him, he is seen returning to the car parking lot. This time, he's not wearing any shoes. At 9:52 a.m, he goes to a dry cleaning place where he drops off 1 out of the 2 bags he has. After this, he buys another suitcase. He goes to a car wash. He washes his car, the red shovel, and a pair of shoes. Now, this explains why he was barefoot. He's then seen leaving the car wash, but the red shovel is leant up against the wall. So he drives off, leaving the shovel leaning up against the car wash. 2 days have gone by, and the family have grown more and more worried about Grace's safety. The parents of Grace finally call the New Zealand authorities and report Grace as a missing person. On the same day, at 4:50 p.m, the man is seen walking through a park where he is dumping items into the bin. We are not sure what exactly he was dumping in the bin, but we can assume that he's slowly trying to distribute any evidence that connects him to Grace. The entire time, he is staying in Grace's room that she is paying for. Now, that's just absolutely horrible. He just killed her, and he is now staying in her room and pretending like everything's okay. On December 6th, the police have recovered some of the CCTV surveillance that Grace is seen in, and this is where they identify the unknown man. They bring him in for questioning, and the man tells the police that the last time he saw Grace was at 8 p.m. on December 1st. At this point, the police know that he stayed the night, so they are already suspicious of him. The police, fortunately, catch him out in all of his lies, and they did this purely from the CCTV footage. They confront the man and explain that they know he slept the night because of the extensive amount of surveillance they have on him, following his every single move. On December 8th, 2018, the man was formally charged with the murder of Grace Millane. The police announced to the public that Grace's case was no longer a missing person, but a murder. At 4 p.m, December 9th, they were able to locate the exact place where Grace Millane's body was buried. Phone records showed that he had Googled the exact location he chose to dispose of her body. Her body was found 30 kilometers west from central Auckland in Waitakere Park. Her body folded into a suitcase. I just want to quickly go through the timeline, because from the time that she was murdered to the time that this man was charged was extremely quick, and they were able to do this because of the CCTV cameras. And I can't stress that enough. This case was solved so quickly because of these cameras. Grace got the justice that she deserved thanks to the extensive amount of surveillance. So, the pair met on the 1st. Grace was murdered on the night of the 1st. Reported missing on the 5th. A person was brought into interrogation on the 6th. An arrest was made on the 8th. And on the 9th, Grace's body was found. After her body was found, a funeral was held at the Brentwood Cathedral at Essex, where hundreds of people gathered to show their respects to Grace. A lot of Grace's paintings were decorating the service. The trial of Grace's murder didn't happen until a year later due to the man pleading not guilty. He is pleading not guilty after all the evidence that is on him. The man spent 5 days trying to cover up Grace's murder. This was no accident. At trial, Grace's cause of death was manual strangulation. The jury was made up of 7 girls and 5 boys. When the case went to hearing, the man's lawyer argued in court that the death of Grace Millane was nothing but rough sex gone wrong. The lawyer tried to argue that Grace enjoyed bondage and sadomasochism. I think that's how you say it. Which resulted in Grace apparently asking the man to strangle her during consensual sex. The trial of Grace's murder was a horrific experience for not only Grace, but her entire family. The court were highlighting her sexual past and her behaviour, with it having absolutely nothing to do with the trial itself. In his trial, he was described as a sociopath, and in which all of his Tinder dates had described their encounter as highly uncomfortable. In the trial, Grace's dad comes to the stand, and I quote, "Grace was taken away from us in the most brutal fashion, and our lives have been ripped apart. She did not deserve to be murdered in such a barbaric way. During her gap year, Grace was our sunshine and she will be missed." End quote. The trial took almost 3 weeks, and after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury found the man guilty of murder. He is sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of a non-parole period of 17 years. After the trial finished, the Prime Minister immediately apologised to the Millane family for the murder of their trial on the New Zealand soil. She said, quote, "Your daughter should have been safe here, and she wasn't, and I'm sorry for that." End quote. Now that the trial has ended, the suppression order is lifted and the identity of Grace's killer is announced. 26-year-old Jesse Kempson was born in Wellington, New Zealand on the 28th of December 1991. His parents split when he was quite young, and he was raised by his grandparents. He has been described as a pathological liar. Jesse lied about many things. For example, he said his parents had died. He lied about partners having cancer. He said he was related to professional softball players, and he even lied to a landlord saying that he was a professional softball player for the New Zealand Black Sox. Now, this eventually was discovered as a lie because Jesse didn't pay his rent, and the landlord went to the New Zealand Black Sox and asked, like, "Do you know this man? Apparently he is a player for your team." And they turn around and they said, "We don't know who this man is." So he has been proven more than once that he just is a liar, and that's just who he is. A woman that met Jesse had said that he spoke to her about how he was just about to buy all the bars in New Zealand to add to his franchise. He also added that he had a bachelor's degree in law and that his family were a millionaire that owned multiple restaurants. Clearly, this man wanted to make people believe that he was this big, rich person, and He was nothing of the sort. Jesse also had a son to a previous girl he had slept with. He has nothing to do with this son. After the trial ended and the suppression was lifted, it came out to the media that Jesse had actually sexually assaulted another British tourist months earlier, who he also met on Tinder. He was also faced with 8 charges of sexual and violent abuse against his current girlfriend. Up until June 29th, 2021, he had tried to appeal his verdict multiple times, but they were all denied. Grace's case has been added to the list of case files where the defense team tries to argue that the use of rough sex is justifiable violent murder against women. Love Grace at Love Grace UK on Instagram is a charitable organisation that has been raising awareness and money towards male violence towards women. It was set up in Grace's honour by her cousin Hannah and her mother Gillian. They accept donations of handbags that are filled with women toiletries and luxuries that are donated to women abuse shelters in Essex. Grace's family and friends described Grace to be the happiest person and the brightest star, her smile to be infectious. Now that is the case of Grace Millane, and it is such a horrible, horrible way for this 22-year-old to, unfortunately, see the last hours of her life. She was strangled by someone who she thought she could trust. She thought that this man was going to be a genuinely nice person and there might be a future with them, and unfortunately her future was cut short by the hands of this horrible, horrible person. With that being said, that is the end of the case today, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this case. I was looking down a little bit because it is the first case I've ever done, so I was reading off of my notes, but I'm hoping to get a little bit better. So again, leave your case suggestions down below, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next case. Bye!